And good morning. You're watching LiveONETV from New York, and today we have special guest, Dr. Michael Scheuer. The former chief of the Osama bin Laden Unit is also the author of 4 books, Through Our Enemy's Eyes, Imperial Hubris, Marching Toward Hell, and Osama bin Laden. It's my pleasure to welcome him on the program today.
For people who follow U.S. foreign policy, could you pick up and tell us what is on your mind these days?
I think what bothers me the most is, for most of my life, I've tried to vote for people who would stop the useless ring of wars we've been involved in since 1945, all of which we've lost. And I thought maybe with Trump we had the first one since Calvin Coolidge, probably. But his problem with not understanding, first, that he doesn't have the power to conduct wars unless they've been declared by Congress, and second, that invariably American wars since 1945 have been useless wars, unnecessary wars, wars in the name of idiocies like spreading democracy or maintaining democracy. And I really, what right do I have? But I'm a bit disappointed in his lack of comprehension of how simple foreign policy is for the United States. He seems not to realize that when you have the combination of the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean in a fiercely effective nuclear deterrent, no one's coming here to invade us or attack us as long as the border is closed, if they have any sense. So he's just in a situation where he seems to be just one more of these presidents who believes that the United States is responsible for reacting and involving itself in every kind of problem around the world. And my feeling, especially in the Arab world, is that the more we do that, the less we're liked. No matter if there's money connected to it or not.
Yeah. It makes me almost try to think I need to solve the administration's problems. Isn't there enough money to be made in peace?
Much more money to be made in peace. The money you spend in war is gone forever. You're not investing it. You're just expending it. And more importantly, we have never fought a war since 1945 that had anything to do with our security, freedom, or future. We fought wars that are simply wars of choice, inexplicable wars of choice. Whether it's Vietnam, untold numbers of interventions in the Latin America and the Caribbean, Afghanistan. We never win. We have a military that is the world's most reliable devourer of tax funds, and it can't win a war. Whether it's the president not allowing them to win, or whether they're just incompetent, I don't know what the answer is. But right now we have a officer corps, no member of which has ever won a war, or been on the winning side in a war, rather. And so it's really a confusing situation for me. What is more easy than saying to Mr. Zelensky, "See you around, Jack. If you want something from the Europeans, go ahead and get it from them, but we're done." The same thing with Israel. What is our interest there, really? And I think it's money. Us giving them money and then them paying off, probably with our money, the Congress, the Senate, and probably many other people in the United States government. But those are not hard questions. But whenever a question comes up about foreign policy, often about domestic policy, the first thing that politician says, well, that's a complicated issue. And I can't explain it all right here, but I'll tell you that we're working on it, and I'm sure it's going to work out. And if you look simplicity in the face and deny it, you get to where we are today. in foreign policy.
I thought you were talking about George Bush, the son, for a moment.
You can take everyone from Harry Truman forward almost. General Eisenhower probably is an exception. But everybody else down the road has been a warlord, not a president.
Dr. Scheuer, it's my understanding that you were a 22-year vet at the Central Intelligence Agency. Is that approximately correct and accurate?
22 years and a couple months. Yes, sir. I resigned.
That seems like to me a good, healthy, long career there.
Oh, I loved it, sir. I had no animosity toward the agency until the end, when I got involved in finding no one wanted to kill Osama bin Laden or capture him, and then found out that we did a lot of research before the Iraq War to find out if there was any intelligence in our archives at the agency that showed Saddam had given nuclear weapons to Al-Qaeda, and we found nothing. And it was a long, hard search. We had a minimal amount of time to do it, but it was a steady work for about 3 weeks.
Is that a full-on press to see whether there's any chatter or any signals at all that indicate any link whatsoever between senior administration and Al-Qaeda?
Yes, it was diplomatic reporting, agency reporting, NSA reporting. All of the intelligence community that does reporting and shares it with the community was included in that search. And there was just no evidence at all. And George Tenet was the director, and he was supposed to take that to the president. And I could never confirm whether he did or not. I got slicked by him a number of times on trying to eliminate bin Laden one way or another. And so I have a little doubt that he really, frankly, told the president that there's not a lick of evidence, especially since the Secretary of State, Colin, I can't remember the gentleman's name.
From the military, Colin Powell.
Colin Powell. After we had finished that paper, he went to the UN and said the opposite. In essence. So, but it was a wonderful place to work. I think it's been tragically overrun by DEI, which affects the quality of the effort, and it affects the reliability of loyalty. Who are you loyal to? To the person who appointed you or to the country? And I think John Brennan is certainly to be punished for creating that kind of an atmosphere within an agency that when it works, it's very good. When it's politicized, it becomes next to useless and certainly not reliable in terms of producing truth.
Now, you worked with John Brennan, and you were in the room with John Brennan. Now, he just got a criminal referral, but they didn't include your name in that criminal referral, did they?
Not that I know of. I certainly hope not.
But
I knew John Brennan from the first or second year I went to the agency, and he was always kind of an expert on being wrong. The first paper somebody gave me when I went to the agency was to read a paper he wrote on Saudi Arabia, which said by the year 95 or 2000, it would be a Western-like country. Religion would not be as important. Women would be, posing nude. All of those kinds of nonsense. And you see, we're not quite there yet today. But he was, I think I told you previously, he was one of the main blocks in doing anything against Osama bin Laden, because the Saudis didn't want to do anything. And so they have a lot of pull in Washington, and so we never did anything, I guess.
That's what I'm trying to understand. So, Dr. Scheuer, let's go back a little bit. It's my understanding that you grew up as a child in the Buffalo, New York region, and that you worked for a while. Was that with Union Carbide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Lindy Division in Union Carbide. I was a rigger.
What does a rigger do?
Well, it drives geez, I can't remember the name of them right now, but that forklifts, it drives cranes. A rigger is a guy who gets something ready to move from one place to another using cranes.
Uh-huh.
And the factory I worked at made giant, very large containers for oxygen and other gases.
Yeah.
So the rigging crew had to get it off the platform that it was built and onto a truck or another conveyance, which it would travel either to the buyer or to the train yard, where it would be moved again to a train and transported that way.
All right. So you went from that work, you did a bit of college up in Canada and in the United States, and ended up with a PhD in history.
Yes, sir.
And that must have looked good on your resume, because was that a factor in you getting your job with the CIA?
I've been very lucky all my life, sir. The agency was not particularly, I found out later, interested in historians. But under Mr. Reagan and his Bill Casey, his CIA director, they included the word historians on job advertisements that were published in the American Historical Association's magazine. So when I saw that, I thought I'd take a chance at that.
Uh-huh. And can you tell us, in terms of the work at the CIA that you were doing, is there such a thing as forensic historical research or protocols for rigidly adhering to a kind of historical process, the same way we hear about a scientific process? Are there certain approaches that are brought to history when it becomes a matter of national security and saving people's lives to get that history right?
I don't think that there is ingrained that kind of an ingrained system in the agency. But again, I came in with a bunch of other historians, and I couldn't imagine doing my job without knowing, if I was going to do something about the Netherlands, I'd have to know something about their history and where they've been. They were an imperial power. Who knew that? I knew that. Other historians would know it. I think it's essential. I think you can't move without knowing history. And of course, we have a education system which at all levels now either doesn't teach history or teaches lies about history. We still teach that Abraham Lincoln was the savior of the nation, when at the same time he was first and probably still the foremost the enemy of the Constitution that we've had as president, although some are coming pretty close these days. But you take the good with the bad. And, whether it's the United States, whether it's Britain, whether it's Saudi Arabia, Australia, whatever it is, if you don't know about their history, you're shooting in the dark, really.
Yeah. So when you ended up being brought into the Osama bin Laden unit, or part of the team that worked on that was in the 1990s.
Late 1995, I think, sir.
And so reports are coming in that he's doing what? Going to a mosque and holding meetings and telling people that they need to rebel, or he's holding meetings in his apartment. But he's making statements that are enough of a threat that he's picked up by different agencies. And how dangerous is he when you come in? What do you know about him in the first introduction to who he is?
I knew a little bit about him because before I worked on bin Laden, I worked in a branch in the counterterrorism center called Islamic terrorism, Muslim Islamic terrorism. And part of the terrorist problem there for us at the time was in Sudan, in Saudi Arabia, and he was involved in both places very strongly. So we started from there, and really the best intelligence we had on what the threat was came from him. He was like General Giap in Vietnam. It was a man who told us what the war was about, how to stop it, and if we didn't, stop it, it would go on forever as it has. Even
where was he making those statements though? Because he hadn't gone into hiding by that point. So I assume he's still riding around in cars and apartments in Saudi Arabia.
Sure. Well, no, he was in Afghanistan at that point.
Oh.
He went to Afghanistan to fight with the Mujahideen against the Soviets and stayed there and in Pakistan basically for the rest of his life. There may have been times he went back to see his family, but I don't remember ever reading that. He raised a very large family in Sudan, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan. And he was clearly not intent on wanting to fight a war forever. He had no animosity except that of a good Muslim about pornography, drinking alcohol, and other things of that sort. But he said very clearly, we don't care what you do in your country. We want you out of the Muslim world, and especially out of the Holy Land in Saudi Arabia. And that was picked up usually in Arabic. And there used to be a gem in the intelligence community called the Foreign Broadcast Information System. They would pick up the Arabic version, translate it into English and a number of other languages, and share it with the intelligence community. And so by the time he died, we probably had 400 to 600 pages of his speeches, his comments, his interviews with foreign journalists. And it was all there, sir. It was all, here's what the problem is. Here's what they're going to do. And here's why they're going to do it. Now, you would think that would catch somebody's attention. But it was few and far between. For a long time, the intelligence, the Deputy Directorate for Intelligence, which does analysis, they weren't even tasked with writing anything on bin Laden. So it was only after maybe the attack in Yemen in 2010 that they really put the analytic effort into understanding bin Laden. And, by that time I had a couple of books, and I've always found it, they were always very mad at me, but they always used my books in their training classes. So there was a certain amount of satisfaction there.
Yeah. Let's go back to the early stages, if I can. Somebody asks you to be not part, but actually be the chief of, it's given different names. It's a CIA station chief or a CIA station. It's also called a unit. It might also be called a team.
It was also called Alec Station, which was named after my son.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't get the bureaucracy in the agency to move ahead. You can't send a cable unless you have the name of your station, because it comes from Jack to Fred, or however it goes. So my deputy at the time had a son named Alex, and mine was named Alec. And so he was very gracious, and he said, "You're the boss. Let's use your son's name." And we kind of cut around corners a little bit, and we got the first message sent, and our station was then named Alec. And that's how that happened. It's a funny business sometimes, bureaucracy.
Yeah. It sounds like a great name to keep focused on protecting people you love.
That's what we both thought. It's
Great choice. So you're part of this unit, and how many people are there? Do you go into a small room with a table and chairs, or do you go into something like a Hollywood film with giant screens on the wall and phones? No. What does the unit look like?
Myself, my deputy, an office manager, a computer person, computer expert, rather, I don't even understand it still after all these days, but she was a fine officer, and 5 other officers. So we had 9 people altogether. And we never got more than 27. And we had a spectacular bunch of women. I always kidded that if I could have said no men need apply, I would have said it. But of course you couldn't. But I was really joking. But in a sense, it was serious.
That sounds like hardcore DEI, Dr. Scheuer. On the one hand, you say it's holding the agency back. On the other, you think we could handle all women units.
They identified my crew, the women in it, as the Manson family. That came from senior officers in the agency, and they didn't like my unit because there was too many women in it, not enough big tough case officers. But I'll tell you, there is something about a woman's mind that is able to juggle detail, make connections, and then be willing to defend what they found. That is, to me, extraordinary. And they didn't get any credit at all. Very, very few people got any credit at all. Because the war wiped it out, or the attack wiped it out. Then the war in Afghanistan was a joke. The military went there and knew nothing about Afghanistan. Nothing. Had no plans. They planned for everything from going to the bathroom to destroying the Chinese. But a guy who's said, I declare war on you, and then blowing things up in Yemen, in Africa, and in other places, they weren't ready for that.
Yeah. And let me ask you, though,
yes.
One of the things, and I thought about this before we spoke, I thought that I shouldn't think of you as a one-shop answer post for all things CIA. The history is wide, the area of involvement is vast. I shouldn't just ask you anything about the CIA, but it's my understanding from almost its inception that the Central Intelligence Agency has been gathering information of the world, of everything in the world, of all people and actions, and actually issues reports, almost like annual reports for different countries. This would include Afghanistan, and these would be yearly reports, how much water is in the country, resources, government, incredible reports that the United States has sort of taken it upon itself to issue for the whole world. Are you telling me that there wasn't a contingency to know where to put up a base very quickly, or a bit of background on the Soviets fighting the Mujahideen?
Certainly the Soviets, sir, but in my experience, we were lost when the enemy reverted back to unconventional warfare, to insurgency. We were great, still are probably, at using all sources possible, all collection sources on the Soviet Union, on China, probably on some other countries, because we can count their tank facilities. How many tanks do they have parked somewhere? We can look at their overhead imagery and see how many airplanes they have and where they are. We can map out their ground forces, where their bases are, their training facilities are. It's a combination of electronic surveillance equipment and case officers risking their lives to collect intelligence in foreign countries. When it comes to an insurgency, you won't be surprised. There weren't tank parks in Afghanistan for bin Laden's people. There weren't airfields for his aircraft, because there was neither. And so we had to depend on human collection by recruiting assets within Al-Qaeda or close to Al-Qaeda. And we had to depend, oddly enough, on Osama bin Laden, Ayman Zawahiri, his number two, and the public statements they made. Because their goal was not only to infuriate and incense the Muslim world, but to let the Americans know why we're fighting and how to end the war. So it's two different kinds of intelligence. If you're working against these insurgents or guerrillas or whatever you want to call them, it's an entirely different kind of war than working against modern superpowers. Certainly, the modern superpowers are much more dangerous, but our abilities to collect intelligence against them is much greater. The guys in the field with an AK-47, they're much more difficult to get a handle on, especially in a mountainous country.
We're listening to Dr. Michael Scheuer, former CIA chief of the Osama bin Laden Unit. Dr. Scheuer has written 4 books, which you can find on Amazon, both in paperback, hard copy, and Kindle, Through Our Enemy's Eyes, Imperial Hubris, Marching Toward Hell, Osama bin Laden. Through Our Enemy's Eyes is a must-read to truly understand the reasons why radical Muslims have declared war on America and the West.
Okay, let me get back to the first few weeks of the unit being put together, and what is your mandate? I think that you're tasked to understand everything about Osama bin Laden, how he thinks and what his habits are. Is that approximately what the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Find out what you can about bin Laden, his organization, their intentions. Second, make a decision on whether or not he's really a threat to the United States, and then supply the intelligence community as a whole with a stream of intelligence reports that demonstrate the first two. All of that was accomplished between December of 95 and September of 96. Based on what the intelligence reporting we gathered. So from the end of 96 on, all we were waiting for was for an okay to either kill him or to capture him. And it never came.
Dr. Scheuer, but before he's captured and killing, what is he saying that warrants such action? What did he say?
It's funny for an American because it's so easy for us to go to war. But he wanted to go to war with an intention to ending the war as soon as he could. And so he was outspoken and very clear. And I may have said this to you before, sir, but if he was an American politician, he would have been highly praised for staying on message. The story from him, from the first time we got a copy of a speech or something he wrote till the day he died, was right on target. Same message: get out of this land. Stop supporting Arab tyrants. Stop supporting the Israelis. Let the price of oil go to what the market will bear, and don't try to keep the price of Saudi oil cheap for Americans. Message never changed, and it was just extraordinarily hard, and I would say near to impossible, to make senior American leaders believe that there was any kind of a real serious threat when opposed to the Soviet threat, when opposed to the Chinese threat, opposed to European terrorists, but they wouldn't buy it. One of the reasons was so much of their intelligence was open source. That means it wasn't classified. And very few people in the senior levels of the intelligence community or at the White House read anything if it's not classified.
Yeah.
So I don't know if bin Laden knew that or not, but it certainly was an effective cover for what was before our eyes.
Wow. So in plain sight.
Yeah. Yes. Hiding in plain sight. Exactly right.
So this sort of reminds me of what I heard the NFBI investigators say, that when we tap members of the mafia, they don't say go and kill this person. They'll say, I don't like his shirt. It's always, he wears these loud shirts. Can we do something about that? And so in bin Laden's case, was he not necessarily giving specific targets, but was talking in a way where other people would put the ideas together and choose targets?
Well, exactly right, sir. He was an inciter, and we never really came to grips with the idea that he was truly a religious man. During the war in Afghanistan, in which he first funded and then actually fought in for a number of years, we just didn't understand that here is a guy who means what he says and also is respected for his adherence and knowledge of the Quran and other Islamic doctrine. And so, what Obama said, there's no room for the kind of Islam that in the 20th century, he said, no room for the kind of Islam bin Laden preaches in the 20th century. And of course, what he's saying there, whether he knew it or not, was, Islam sucks. But more than that, it's not important enough to be in a place in this world, except for 1 billion Muslims.
Yes.
And so we were really, our leadership was, at the senior level, was mystified by the whole thing and wouldn't believe that it could possibly be a threat to the United States.
And okay, let me get back to that moment when you're putting pieces together in the room. Are you given a dossier of what's already been put together before you come in? Did they say, hey, he got a bank account when he was 14, he got a C+ in grade 7? Is there a folder there for you to build on?
There is an enormous database in the agency of all its prior activities. And the first thing we did, we spent about a month going through that, looking for bin Laden-related information. We basically got very little about Osama bin Laden, but we did get a good amount about his father, who owns the biggest construction company in Saudi Arabia and is kind of the contractor to the royals. He builds the palaces, he builds rail or roadways, he builds everything they want built. So we had information on him, but it was basically derived from the fact that he built military bases for them too. And that's always of interest to the agency and to the U.S. military. We're probably flying planes in and out of Saudi Arabia on runways that were built by the bin Laden Construction Company at the moment. So the answer is no. The only information we had, and the best information we had for most of the time we were going after him, was from himself. And by being able to collect human intelligence in places where he was very popular, to kind of get a grip on what Muslims thought about him. And whether it was Saudi Arabia or Yemen or Sudan or wherever it was, there were also units of his organization in various places in the world, and we were able to attack them with some dexterity and put people in prison because of it. We were very successful against his buddy Ayman Zawahiri, the Egyptian Islamic Jihad leader, and we basically in I guess it would have been 96 and 97 broke their back by capturing a lot of their fighters, the leaders of their fighters in Europe, and were able to incarcerate them for perpetuity. So it's an issue that should have been handled one way or another, either capture or kill, because there was no one to replace him. And as far as I can tell, there are several strong Islamist leaders, but no one in the same rank. But what they are doing is fighting in the same manner for the same cause in the same way.
Thank you for watching LiveOne_TV on the X platform. Don't forget to share and repost. And if you like our programming, visit patreon.com/LiveOneTV. Show your support for independent media. Dr. Scheuer's books, Through Our Enemy's Eyes, Imperial Hubris, Marching Toward Hell, and Osama bin Laden are all available on Amazon. And follow Dr. Scheuer on 2mics.com.